Welcome to Plant-Based News. Today, we're absolutely thrilled to bring you a conversation with a true pioneer and powerhouse in the whole food plant-based world. She's a celebrated chef, best-selling author, and passionate advocate known for helping countless people reclaim their health through not only interviewing experts, talking at conferences, but also through delicious, unprocessed food. Welcome to the amazing Chef AJ. How are you doing today?
Oh, my good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
So you've probably done at least 15 or 20 interviews over the last couple of months where people's introductions have been about the cancer diagnosis. And so one of the first things I wanted to ask is like, how has that been? Do you feel like there's a element of your interviews now where it's defined by that? Is that something that it is welcomed by you? And maybe just for the viewers who have seen you maybe on our channel a couple of years ago, like maybe you could just provide a real brief overview about your diagnosis.
Yeah, oh, sure. Very brief. It's been about a 2-year process. So I was diagnosed with stage 1A lung cancer on April 15th, 2023. And I did not go public with it because it didn't seem like that big of a deal. The tumor was small. I couldn't even biopsy. I was told it was slow growing. We could do watchful waiting. And then lo and behold, in November of 2024, somehow I jumped to stage 3A with metastases. And so I always think about that we have a cartoon that I've loved my whole life called Scooby Doo. And there's a line, this time the monsters are real, because up until then they weren't. And like this time the cancer is real. So I really had to, take it seriously and I wasn't not taking it seriously before, but there wasn't really a lot that could be done that I wanted to do at that time. Like it didn't seem like a good idea just to have my whole left lower lobe removed when there wasn't even really a confirmed cancer diagnosis, because until you have a biopsy, you really don't know. There's a saying in oncology, no meat, no treat. And I couldn't even get the biopsy. So after that, I decided to go public because I was tired of just struggling with this on my own. And, there's a lot of people that came forward, doctors and people that gave me such great advice and things I could do that I am doing, that if I had kept it secret, I wouldn't have known. So I was doing a daily live show on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and at the time, Twitter, called Chef AJ Live, because when the pandemic started in the United States, at least on March 20th, I guess it was 2020, when our governor, Gavin Newsom, said we need to shelter in place, I started going live ostensibly to my private group, pushing the wrong button. It went everywhere. And people at the time really needed a sense of community, connection, and engagement. And so it was like, 600 people watching. It's like, whoa, nobody watches this. And so I started doing it every day, but it got a little bit tedious just having me talk to people. So I started, texting and emailing my friends in the plant-based world, would you come on and have a conversation with me? And the next thing I know, it was a show that I did every day for 4 years and 3 months. I was like Cal Ripken. We have this baseball player in the United States, Cal Ripken. He never missed a game his whole career. I was the Cal Ripken of YouTube. I never missed a show. I mean, I had COVID. I never, ever missed a show. And I was hoping to do it for 5 years. The cancer had other plans, but it was still pretty good. 4 years, 3 months live every single day, and with a variety of guests, many of who many of the superstars in the plant-based world, of course, like Dr. Greger and Dr. Furman, and lesser known people that wrote maybe plant-based books that nobody else knew about, or chefs. And it was a tremendous amount of fun, and I loved it because a lot of people, it helped their businesses grow. People were struggling during the pandemic, like small businesses, for example, like local spicery and California balsamics, small vendors that make incredible products, but they're not in stores. And without, this kind of exposure, like their businesses would have failed. So I felt like I was helping people. I was having fun. And then I needed to slow down. The doctor said I couldn't do a show every day. So what we did is we sent out a newsletter to my mailing list and saying who are your top picks, and then the four top people got a weekly slot, and I started doing that. It was much easier, but then I felt like, I can't just sit here and just talk about just stuff that is, not. It's not that the stuff I was talking about wasn't important, but it's like all I could think about was cancer. And so I decided to do a series, and I did it in the first 31 days of January of 2025, called Thriving in the Face of Cancer. And I had more people wanting to do that than I could do slots. But I had top researchers like Dr. William Lee and Dr. Dean Ornish, and also people with cancer. But the idea was that people could thrive in the face of cancer. And what I tried to create was something that would live on, that people like me that are newly diagnosed, that are scared, that don't know where to go, could watch this series for free and get some information on, like, oh wow, if I need a wig, you mean there are places that actually make you look good instead of some generic wig, that there are places I can go to get a buddy or an angel, because it would have been enormously helpful to me if I had known about Immerman's Angels, where I could talk to somebody that was diagnosed with my exact kind of cancer, that was a long-term survivor. And if I had known about Go To for lung cancer, I didn't know about any of this. It's almost like I had to do the research on my own. And hopefully people will see this, and it can help them not to have to navigate some of the difficult waters of cancer diagnosis on their own.
Wow. And I remember hearing in one of your early interviews a couple of months ago, it was along the lines of, I've been so passionate about whole food plant based when it comes to weight loss. And now this diagnosis has really made me think, what, why is like weight loss? Yeah, sure. It's important. Health status is really important. It's linked to good health, but like, I don't want to do that stuff anymore. I don't want to talk every day about losing 10 pounds. There's some bigger stuff going on in the world.
I know, because it's so funny how, like I always think about how, reality just gives, bites you in the ass. And so, not that weight loss isn't important, especially for some people that are facing, important uh, junctures in their health where weight loss could mean the difference between having an operation or going on medication. I'm in a position where I've actually had to gain weight and make sure that I don't lose any more weight. The thing is you probably know weight loss sells, and I have to make I had to make, and I mean, there's other ways to make a living, but I was very successful using a whole food plant based diet, employing the principles of calorie density to lose 70 pounds. And I didn't find it difficult. I wrote a book about it, and I generally wanted to help people. I didn't realize that there's other factors that are involved in people's ability to lose weight and keep them off. And this is where, you know, I, I wish, I wish I knew then what I knew now. And that just understanding calorie density, it's a huge factor in understanding weight loss if you want to do it in a way where you can actually eat large quantities of food. But there's so much else to a person, their psychology, their environment. And these are things that I was not equipped to deal with, as even as somebody that, technically was a health coach, because I had it very easy with the environment I lived in and with the support I had from Dr. Doug Lyle. It's not always easy for people. But the thing is, people really want to lose weight. We're in a situation now where, with COVID, for example, the light was shined on that people that fared less well often were people that had excess weight. So it wasn't just about vanity anymore, but they were really trying to shed the light and make people understand that having excess weight isn't not just about how you look, but it's about your disease markers, even cancer. Ironically, the type of cancer I was diagnosed with, lung cancer, weight is not one of the the precipitating things. So it just feels like, I have I have more important things to do right now, because there's enough people out there, all the wonderful young Instagrammers and the young people like, you got broccoli mom, you don't need me anymore. Just follow her recipes, do exactly what she says, and you'll be absolutely fine. But the thing is, so what if you're skinny, if you're in a coffin? That's what.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you say around weight loss, and there's so many other aspects to it. There's the psychology, there's the community, there's what you're eating, which is kind of what you focused on, right? And I think maybe the focus for you was on that because we live in a society where, I don't know about you, but my read on it is everybody's talking about psychology. Everybody's talking about get a friend, get a buddy, do this, do that, but nobody's actually talking about the elephant in the room. And you found a really good way to back up your vegan ethical passion by talking about that whole food plant based weight loss. And you're on the circuit. You were going LA, all these events, and you were going to conferences in Washington, and you were going to the veg source,
And
doctor, lifestyle expert, and all of
you know,
them.
cruises, for example. And I did 7 years. I ran a summit called The Truth About Weight Loss. It's still as popular today as it was 7 years ago because people really want the information, but the information isn't enough. There's so much involved whether or not a person is going to be successful. But I'll still contest that the diet that I recommend is delicious. Like, even if you, okay, my husband has never needed to lose weight, but the recipes I've created within the parameters of whole food, plant based, without sugar, oil, salt, lower in calorie density, they're still delicious. And you know, True North, for example, where I used to work, this is how they eat. This is how the doctors teach their patients whether or not they need to lose weight. Of course, people that need to gain weight, needing to add more calorically dense food like whole foods, like nuts and seeds and avocado, not necessarily things like oils, for example. But I think you can have. I mean, think about fruits and vegetables. They're calorically dilute, nutrient rich. And these are things that everybody should be eating, regardless of their dietary style, in my opinion.
100%. So I want to just dive into a couple of big topics in this interview. One of the main ones is kind of like around the double-edged sword of modern medicine. But before we get into that, I just want to give a shout out, and we'll talk about it later, but I just want to make sure we get to it really early. You've got an amazing event coming up very soon, August in Las Vegas. Is that right?
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited because last July, July 7th, I produced and hosted my 23rd conference here in California at Weimar. And I just realized I can't do it anymore. It's just too much work. And, you know, I've got to concentrate on my healing. And so I said to the people, I said, this is the last conference. And, you know, there's a saying, when God closes a door, he opens a window, or maybe when he closes a window, he opens a door. So I heard from a dear friend that I hadn't seen in years in Atlanta, Benji Kurtz of Remedy Food, who used to produce the most wonderful plant-based conferences pre-pandemic. And he said, if I'll produce it if you'll host it. I go, are you kidding? And so we have, I think, a dream lineup. I mean, it's just, I mean, you know, Neil Barnard, Brenda Davis, Joel Furman. He was, you know, so just wonderful people and wonderful chefs as well. And it's Chris Wark. I'm trying to think of everybody else that's speaking.
Well, and you're honoring the late John McDougall as well, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. You know, we're just, one of the reasons we're doing that is because 2 days before Dr. McDougall died, I remember calling him and saying, "Come on, please come to this conference. Oh, think about it." And it's like, you know, so we definitely want his memory there. We know for sure his daughter Heather will be there, and you know, we don't have some big extravagant, you know, ceremony planned, but other than that, we will acknowledge him because really, Dr. McDougall really kind of gave me my start in the plant based world. You know, I would say Johnny Carson gave me my start in the comedy world, and Dr. John McDougall, because he was the first one that took a chance on me and hired me all the way back in 2009 for his Celebrity Chef Weekend, and then again twice for his Advanced Study Weekend. And back in the day, you know, now there's a lot of conferences. It seems like, well, at least they're growing again post pandemic. But at one point, really, Dr. John McDougall's conference, the Advanced Study Weekend, and Jeff Nelson's Veg Source at the time were really the only two conferences.
Wow. I mean, I've obviously we met at a Veg Source event.
Yes, that was a fun one. I remember.
I never had the honor of going to Dr. McDougall's, but yeah, from my perspective, definitely like the OGs of the whole food plant based world when it comes to conferences.
I just turned 65, so I'm definitely one of the OGs. I'm not the OOG. We'll leave that for Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Campbell, but I am getting to be one of the OGs.
That's hilarious. Well, yeah, I mean, there are different eras, right? You're right. There's the Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Campbell, and I almost think that what we need is this movement to kind of to kind of go global. Like I'm obviously from London in the UK, but just for so many years I've been passionate about this, and it seemed to me as if the biggest, most effective proponents of this lifestyle were just in California in the US, and that's obviously changing. There are plant-based doctors, amazing lifestyle medicine doctors in the UK, obviously all over the US. What's it been like from your perspective in terms of thinking back? I think in 2011 you kind of started to get serious about this. How has the movement kind of evolved? Has it been as you expected?
Well, you know, I'm really intrigued by the fact that one of the reasons people are going vegan or plant based now is the environment. That wasn't a concern 47 years ago when I went vegan. I mean, nobody ever talked about it, and even truly until Forks Over Knives came out, which I believe was 2011, nobody ever talked about the health benefits. And that's the thing, when people say to me, what, your vegan diet failed you, or you need to eat meat to get to over cancer. What people don't understand, unless they really know me, is at the end of the day, I was first and foremost, and still am, an ethical vegan. That's why I did it. It was because of my love for animals, and I didn't really enjoy eating them, frankly. As a matter of fact, it kind of disgusted me even throughout childhood. My mother had to disguise things so that I could eat things that had animal products. So I'm not, even if you told me, if you eat this cow, you'll be cured. No, I'm not going to do it. So I find it's even more helpful now that there's more than one reason to go vegan or plant based, because there are people that maybe don't have this ethical concern. It's funny because I actually know somebody that is vegan for his health who is an exterminator. Like, his job is killing bugs and also animals, because they kill rats and things. That is his job. So he's not an ethical vegan, but he eats vegan for his health. And so I don't want to say, well, if you're not a vegan for ethical reasons, you shouldn't be vegan, because there are people that say that. But I think that it doesn't matter why you're not eating animals, because they appreciate it regardless. And so I think Forks Over Knives really opened the door, first of all, for other people to make these documentaries, but also for people to see, oh, wow. You mean if I don't eat animals or eat fewer animals, this could have a huge impact on my health, and maybe I won't need to take this diabetes medicine? Because people, let's face it, most people in general are selfish, and there was a reason now for people to do it. And I think the longer somebody is vegan, the more chance they do get that ethical piece in place. And then, they don't necessarily go vegan for health reasons and then throw away their leather belts or leather shoes the next day. But I think it does eventually soften them to the ethical piece, which I think is a lot better than just trying to hit them over the head by making them watch these videos. I think people have to come to it in their own time. You can't force somebody to be vegan. Just, like they say, it's probably easier to change somebody's religion than to change their diet, because there's so many reasons people choose the diets they have. Cultural, maybe because they believe it's the healthiest diet. And again, it's that community. I think that's the hardest piece, and that's why conferences are such a great thing for people to be with like-minded people. But I'm so intrigued by the people now. These young people, I don't know a lot of them, but really just become vegan because of the environment, and I think that's amazing to me, because that's just as amazing as people that do it for ethics. But it doesn't matter why you go vegan; just go vegan, or at least reduce your consumption. There's people that feel like either going to be 100% or nothing, and that's not. We would do a much better job if people would just cut down their consumption, everybody, than having a few of us just be 100% vegan.
And so with what's happened in the last few months, where you kind of made the video talking about your lung cancer diagnosis, because you've had this for 2 years before, right? And you just, as you said at the beginning,
Yeah.
how has that changed your perspective of the medical model over the last couple of years? Because for so long, you go to these conferences where I'm not trying to say like there was hatred or intentional antagonism towards the medical model, but there was some fierce critics, including John McDougall and most of the people. And so now, a couple of years ago, the
Yeah.
perspective changed. I just wonder how that changed. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because it kind of reminds me of people that say they hate policemen. You'll see that in the United States. I hate cops. I hate the fuzz. You hate them until you need them. You know what I mean? And it's the same.
So I'm laughing. I'm laughing, but it's because it's such a great
Yeah,
analogy.
or the
Yeah.
same thing with people in the armed forces. I hate, people in that. You hate them until you need them. And so the thing is, you know, one of the things I like about integrative medicine is it integrates East and West together. And the thing is I think we do people in general a disservice by having them believe that if you follow a plant-based diet, or the perfect plant-based diet, you will never get sick again. And a lot of people believe that. Like, well, they come to it. First of all, very few people were born vegan or even with a healthy diet. Let's face it. I mean, there are a few. I mean, like Dr. Goldhammer's son. It's funny. He's almost 40. He's never taken an antibiotic. So there are some exceptional people out there that had parents that were doing this, but most of us, Ocean Robbins, for example, but for the most part, most of us weren't born vegan or even eating a health promoting diet. And so
And
we,
let me just come in and say, even if you do, you're still in an environment where there's toxins and stuff nowadays, to your point, right? So
Mhm.
your point is you can't get away from it.
And what about genetics? I think the people that are these staunch believers that the plant based diet will fix everything forget that genetics plays a huge role. Now, your diet and lifestyle is important because it can determine not how well you live, but your length of life, your longevity is largely determined by your genetics, your genetic potential. And people want you to believe that if you just eat like the blue zones, and drink your wine and, go to church, it's not true, because if you go to the blue zones today, they're not living as long as the parents when they did these studies, for example. So things do play a part. And I believe your thoughts can be as important as what you eat. This is what I'm learning, is because, we focus so much on just the food, just the food. And the thing is, when you are very sick, you can't just have a kale smoothie. And people do believe that if I would just now follow, the perfect version of the raw food diet, I will get well. And the thing is I've done 2 water fasts, and I didn't cure my cancer, and I didn't even treat my tumors. Now that doesn't mean that there's going to be some cumulative effect where that is going to be helpful in the mix of things. But people, I think people do themselves a disservice and others a disservice when they tell them or give them false hope that if they would just do the diet or do the, because that people are like, oh, well, she didn't do the diet right. Well, first of all, I wasn't even doing it for health reasons until 2003, when I got diagnosed with pre-colon cancer. I was just living my life as a person that loved animals. I was obese. I was a junk food vegan, and so I've made major improvements. And who who can say that that healthier diet that I followed from the last 12 years didn't save me from being diagnosed sooner or having worse cancer? I don't know. It's but I do have strong family history of cancer. I've had many first degree relatives die of cancer young. My brother, my father, my grandfather, my uncle. So it's there. I know nobody ate like me, but that it has not all been written yet. We'll see how I fare, in future years. And it's not like I threw the diet out. It's funny because I had like one moment, like, people were like, oh, you just eat anything you want now because you got to gain weight. And, first of all, I would never eat an animal product. Like, just, I was thinking like, well, I could eat something junky. So here's what I did. This is so funny. So, I was feeling sorry for myself, and it's like, oh, what does it matter? Why should I don't have to avoid, sugar or, yeah, you get feel like that. And so I was thinking about, well, what do I miss that I haven't? Because on January 2nd, 2012, that's when I really got serious about a health promoting diet without sugar, oil, salt, low calorie density. I'm thinking, well, what do I really miss? Because as a chef and a former pastry chef, I can create most things to taste exactly like it. And I thought, well, this is so weird because of all the hyper palatable decadent foods in the world, what do I pick? Black licorice. I just had again a hankering for it. It's funny because I've actually learned how to make it in a very clean way with 3 ingredients. But so I bought a bag of black licorice, gluten free, one without wheat. It was like 550 calories. It had sugar, of course, and I ate it. And it's like, I'm like, no, this is good. And like, I got so sick. It was like, I really got sick from eating it. And I'm like, the point I'm trying to make is when I don't follow my diet, I don't feel well. And the thing is especially now with the diagnosis of cancer, the quality of my life is more important than the length of my life. And because I've been eating healthy so long, when I have an indiscretion like that, I felt terrible. And it's like it made me get on course right away. And I learned how to make licorice with dates. Basically, it's incredible. I mean, you do need a dehydrator, but it's like, I'm glad I had that experience because it just shows me how committed I am to my diet, not because I believe it's the healthiest, because it makes me feel the best. And that's the thing. When you to circle back to weight loss, it's kind of like if you have a car that's all dinged up, you kind of get used to it. And then imagine getting like a new car. When you first get that new car, you're like, you park far away, you wash it, you wax it, and it's like for people that are kind of eating an unhealthy diet, they don't necessarily know that they are, because they don't know how good they could feel if they changed their diet to a healthier version of a plant-based diet. And once you do that for a long time, Dr. Furman has said this many times, because we basically eat the same diet. He eats more nuts and seeds than me, but he's like, this is what makes me feel the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things that really convinced me about plant-based nutrition. It's not just the reversal studies, the like the heart disease and the type 2 diabetes and the early stage prostate cancer, but it's just the foundational feeling of satisfaction that you get when you eat this way. And what you're saying is you only realize that when you revert back to the junk food, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be, I mean, and some people maybe shouldn't take that test because it could be a slippery slope. But it's interesting. It's funny because I was just at an event with Dr. Alan Goldhammer, and he was talking about cancer and that vegans will get cancer at a higher rate because they tend to live longer because they're not dying early of other diseases like heart disease.
And what? Sorry, repeat that. Just I just want to make sure. So there's an increase in incidence.
Well, he said that he said that vegans or people that follow a health promoting diet are more likely to eventually get cancer because they tend to live longer. Whereas, one of the reasons people that are smokers often don't die of lung cancer is because they've died earlier from heart disease. And that's the other thing I just want to mention. The particular type of cancer I was diagnosed with, it's unfortunate because I'm meeting people with my diagnosis, and it is a very, very stigmatized cancer. It's funny because when you tell people you were diagnosed with lung cancer, do you know what the first question always is?
I know you don't need to tell me, but tell everyone.
Did you smoke? And the thing is, and that's even before, and the thing is, that's even before saying, gosh, I'm really sorry to hear that. And as somebody that does the work you do, that people with colon cancer, or for example, eating processed meats like bacon and bologna and salami, they can tend to increase the incidence of colon cancer. When people are diagnosed with colon cancer, do we say, did you eat bacon? I mean, there is a kind of a lack of sensitivity. And even doctors will do that too, believe it or not. And the thing is what people don't understand is that because of this stigmatization, it is one of the least funded cancers. And so yeah, and also what people don't understand is that lung cancer is especially increasing, not only in terms of people that have never smoked, but in women and in young women. And so it's actually hard. Like with breast cancer, it's like everybody's on board with the pink ribbon and run for the cure and race for the cure and eat for the cure. But with certain cancers, not so much. And so that's something else I want to share. My experience with and shed the spotlight on is like, you know, even if people participated in their own illness in any way, is that a reason to admonish them or shame them or blame them? I mean, in other words, we still want to help them. People that are alcoholic, for example, we still give them treatment if they want it. We don't say, well, you caused this. And so that's been kind of interesting to see how people react. And I want to say this right now before I forget. There are people that you would know if I mentioned their name right now that are in the plant based world that might be considered influencers that have cancer that are hiding it. And they've come to me privately and to say, wow, you're really brave, but I don't want to tell people because I don't want to go through what you're going through. And I have a book coming out. And it's like, why should we have to? I mean, I'm not saying that like we should every time we go to the grocery store say, hey, I got cancer. That's not what I'm saying. But I felt very well, first of all, it was very lonely, not telling anybody. And because it's very hard to get support when you have a secret. But also I felt a lot of shame. Like if I'm on the air almost every day and I had my hand brace on and somebody watching said, why do you have a hand brace? I could say, oh, I have trigger thumb. What, why, there are days that I just felt terrible. And it's funny because I went on the air 10 minutes after being diagnosed. And it was like when I watched that video and I'm like, this is the ironic thing in life. It was my former acting teacher for her 88th birthday. And it's like I was thinking, Joan, you taught me well, because the fact that I could get punched in the stomach like that, and like, they say in Hollywood, the show must go on. But a lot of times I was just feeling like, God, I don't even want to do my show today. I'm sad. And it's not like every show has to be about me, but I want to be able to talk about it, especially if people have questions, and especially if I can help them. And, it's amazing how many people have come forward to help me with not only ideas, but just beautiful gifts and healing. I have this thing, things that people send me, like beautiful bracelets, but also there are people that have, it's so funny because there are people that are newly diagnosed that have called me and said, wow, that series really helped me. Like, they don't feel so alone going into it. No one should have to feel alone unless they want to, because cancer's scary enough. But people just need to know that there are resources. And I'm just going to say it right now, at least in the United States, one of the best resources you can find is a person at your local hospital called the social worker. They are specializing in oncology. And at least in the United States, you don't even have to go to that hospital. But if you just go to your closest hospital and find out who the social worker is, and often they're oncology social workers, these people, and they're often women, they hold the keys to the kingdom, and they can get you hooked up with groups, and they know everything. And I didn't know that, because until I got an oncologist, which took a year and a half, and was referred to one, I didn't know that these very special humans exist. I need to interview one, because that's how you get connected with what you need. And you do need resources, because I'm surprised people can go through this alone, because it's really scary. It's quite scary because
It reminds me of I recently read a book about chronic pain, and it talked about the difference between clean pain and dirty pain. So clean pain is the actual feeling. So perhaps in your, I know you've not been that symptomatic, right? But in your case, or whichever disease it is, it's like the actual, are you sleep, are you waking up in the night because of pain, whatever it is. And then the dirty pain is actually the thing that causes most of the anxiety, the grief, the depression. It's the overthinking of how is society going to view me? What are my viewers going to think? I've been talking about a plant based lifestyle, and now I'm not disease free. Oh my god, I've said that word. It feels like all that is like the dirty pain. And so this is something that before I read this book I never really thought about, to be honest. But I don't know if that resonates at all.
Absolutely. And, you know, um, there were people, and again, one of the decisions I had to make when I went public is to stop looking at social media, because even though a lot of it is positive towards me, and I hired a virtual assistant to tell me about these things, there were people that made very nice, not nice videos about me. And these people were not people with big followings or doctors or anything like that. But you talked about symptomatic. Well, I'm going to just be honest with you right now. I finally am symptomatic. And by that, I don't mean like, thank God, symptomatics of the lung cancer itself, because I'm told that often with cancer and lung cancer, by the time you're quote symptomatic, it's towards the end. You don't feel lung cancer. But as a result of my treatment, which is immunotherapy. It's not chemotherapy. It's a different type of delivery. It's delivered as an infusion. It's a drug called Keytruda. People that followed Jimmy Carter's last 10 years know that he had, I believe it was multiple myeloma, and he got an extra 10 years from this drug. Immunotherapy is different than chemo. Chemo not only destroys cancer, but everything else in its wake. Immunotherapy, the idea is it supports your immune system to fight the cancer. And so I did really well with my first treatment, only felt tired and nausea for a day. But my second treatment, I got one of the rarer side effects, which is a bout of acute pancreatitis, which is really, 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 really painful. And so I'm actually kind of at the end of it now. That's why maybe I'm not as high energy, because right now I'm actually not eating any food, because that is one of the ways that to help heal the pancreas. So it was, that was like, oh, people go through so much, especially with chemo, and it's just that it took a long time to get to the point to make a decision to have treatment. And then the treatment itself, let's face it, is not really very fun. It's not fun. And I mean, if there was a way I could be the Patch Adams of cancer and try to make it more fun for people, I would. But the reality is it's not fun. But the mental part is, I feel like the mind is the most important thing to manage. And as I talk to people that are survivors, they are people that somehow manage their emotion, not emotions, not that you can't feel sad or cry, but the mental piece is so hard because I mean, we all could die. I could get hit by a car in, tomorrow, but the reality is that we could die sooner than we wanted to or expected, and so you have to live. You don't have to, but you often want to live your life in a way where that's just something you're just it's kind of hanging in the balance, and you can't not think about it, or at least I can't. And so when I wake up, I'm grateful. Like, I'm like, oh, I mean, I literally wake up every day now and I'm like, oh, I am not dead. I mean, this is awesome.
But isn't it crazy that there's this undeniable fact that we're all gonna die? Yeah, we're all gonna die, but we don't ever want to talk about it. We don't want to think about. I was thinking this last week, and I was on the way to the coffee shop. I was like, no, I don't, I'm not. I'm just shut up, Klaus. Why are you thinking that? But what I mean, how is the reality of a prognosis and a diagnosis of what you've gone through change that mindset? Is it a case of cherishing the present? Is it a case of um, just being more grateful rather than stressed about stupid things that we all get stressed
No.
about? Do you still get stressed over like email and admin, or how has it changed?
I do get stressed, but I let things go at a much quicker rate now because I don't have time for other people's bullshit anymore. Or to, I mean, honestly, or I mean, not, I don't mean that in a rude way, but it's just like, it's a lot easier to say no now and to not do things I don't want to do. And because, I only know, and also even just the fact that I'm 65, even without cancer, I have less time ahead of me than probably behind me. And I want to spend my life doing what I want to do and what brings me joy and happiness. And so that's why if you email me, you're going to get an autoresponder saying I may not get back to you, because that's always been the albatross, email. Like, I don't know how to like manage it or control it, and it's become like one of the things that I've let go. And it's, in a way, it's kind of freeing to be able to live like that. I think people should do their best to do that without a cancer diagnosis, but I think a lot of people don't, because I think people don't realize that life is finite. And that's the thing about people, like, they're like, oh, you didn't follow the right vegan diet. Listen, guys, even veganism is fatal. Everybody dies whether they're vegan or not. We may live, more healthfully up until the end, but we all have an expiration date. And based on genetics and lifestyle and environment, some of the expiration dates come sooner.
I think people have a romantic vision maybe of when they do think about am I going to die, they know that they will, but they think, especially in the plant-based community, oh, I'm just gonna get to 100 or 105, and then I'm gonna wither away in the sunset and just have a good life, and I'll watch my family and I'll feel really good, and I'll be like one of those blue zone people, and it's all gonna be perfect until the very end. But yeah, I mean, there's so many things in the environment that are toxic. There's most people have not lived an optimal lifestyle for decades. I mean, you said in 2011, that's when you started to get serious about cutting out processed foods,
Mhm.
right? So that's so many
Absolutely.
years. Same with me, so many years where, and I'm not saying that's responsible for your cancer. There's a genetic component as well, but yeah, it's just it's not that that perfect narrative that I think so many people want to believe, right?
Yeah, we're not guaranteed anything, honestly. And, I mean, think about it. Two of my heroes died at 77, Dr. Hans Deal and John McDougall. They,
Han, I'm so sorry. I did not know Hansdale.
what?
I did not know he
Oh
passed
my
away.
gosh. Okay, so Dr. McDougall died June 22nd of 2024, and a year prior, in July, I believe it was July, one of my heroes, Dr. Hans Deal, died, and he was 77 at the time. And that,
German physician doing the lifestyle medicine.
absolutely. He was the founder of the Worldwide Chip Program. I mean, he looked amazing. He felt amazing. He followed a perfect diet, as did John McDougall. But you just don't know. And people are just like always trying to figure out and speculate. And, there must be, there's a life is mysterious. None of us know. So the thing is, you have to just live it while you can, embrace it and enjoy it. I don't know if you're familiar with a book called, or it was a play, Our Town by Thornton Wilder. And there's a character. It's quite, it's funny because I've always wanted to be kind of more in the arts and be an actress. And I always thought, gosh, if I could have done, there's two roles in life that I wish I could have played. I'm too old for both of them now. One is Adelaide in Guys and Dolls. I almost got that part once. I came in. I was the runner up for when I auditioned. That was one play, but one it was Our Town, and Emily is this character, and she basically dies in childbirth. But you hear from her after she's dead with the narrator of the play. I remember on TV it was Hal Holbrook. I don't know who played Emily, but when she's saying goodbye to the world, like she gets to come back for a little bit, and like it's one of the most poignant scenes in literature. But she's basically saying goodbye to the world as she knows it, and she says to the narrator, she goes, "Do human beings ever realize life every minute when they live it?" And he says, "No, saints and poets maybe." And it's just like, I don't think people realize the gift of life. We're so busy all the time. There's a thing that we're not human, that instead of being human beings, we're human doings. And people are so busy living the rat race and trying to make a living or trying to get more. And I think anybody that I've talked to that has cancer, we realize that life really is a gift, and it's also finite. So get busy with the business of living.
Yeah, and even for people that have found purpose, right? I've spoken to so many of the doctors that you're friends with. And same with me, I don't even need to mention them. Same with me. Like if I think about what takes up my stress and my time, I want it to be the creative aspect of putting out content. I want it to be doing talks and doing advocacy. But thinking about it, it's often the useless things that I'm getting annoyed at, and this is definitely making me reflect on, actually, is there a way to just not get phased and not get anxious and not get distracted by all this crap? It's and I tell you what, put this into perspective. I've spoken to a couple of doctors about this. I spoke to Dr. Alan Desmond about this a week or two ago. Last year, I was actually in hospital for 25 days in a vascular ward. It's a real long story, but I had a DVT, a blood clot, many years ago, and they put a venous stent in one of my veins in my upper leg. And this stent has had a FDA Class 1 recall, which means it's not implanted in anybody anymore. And so they did an explant surgery, except it went wrong, and I got sepsis. And
Oh
so,
my
because of the
gosh.
nature of this, I was in a vascular ward, right? And I was seeing all of these people, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and there I was, 34-year-old, in no position to lecture them or talk to them about their diets or their lifestyles, right? Because I'm in the ward with them, but just so, so destroying, just so. And this is one of the reasons that, like, when I first started plant-based news, I was super passionate about whole food plant-based. I went to the Veg Source conference, went to PCRM's conference. We met, we hung out, I met so many amazing friends, and then I pivoted into the sustainability field. So I kind of stopped actively doing as many interviews and as much content on whole food plant-based nutrition. But this experience last year in 2024 on that vascular ward, it rekindled my passion for holistic health. I'm not just talking about only nutrition. I'm talking about psychology, community, love, connection, exercise, because it's so destroying when you see how most people live, right? Like and if only they would know how finite life is, they would just live it completely differently, I think.
Absolutely. And it's funny. That's such an interest. I mean, I'm sorry for you having that experience, and I hope everything's well. But I understand like what you were saying about, well, who am I to tell them to eat better? And people still. I'm not the food police, and still, like when I go to events and people are maybe drinking alcohol or eating, or hyper palatable food, or even recently at Rancho La Puerta, some of the people were eating animal products, and they're apologizing, and it's like, you don't need to apologize to me. Oh, it's funny because Lissa, my friend who was with me from Raw Food Romance, when they were apologizing for eating animal products, and she goes, "You don't have to apologize to me. Apologize to the fish." I thought that was a great line. But the thing was, is who am I to judge? I mean, one of the things this has done has made me a lot less judgmental. And it's not like I was somebody that was verbally saying things to people like, I can't believe you smoke or drink. But, you think things. I mean, as humans, we make judgments when we see things. And now it's like, when I see things that I think are less than stellar health habits or people, I basically just, say, like, who am I? I said, I'm the one that's got cancer. So, I zipped the lip it like completely now, which I think is better, especially if you want to get along with people. Yeah,
Yeah, right, right, right. It's so hard to build connection when you're it's all I mean, it just speaks to having to inspire if we want to get people on the journey rather than dictate what they should be doing. But I was gonna ask, has anyone in the community or lifestyle medicine community spoken around about cancer to you in terms of reversal, not for lung cancer necessarily, but has this highlighted to you the connection with Dean
yeah.
Ornish's work? Is that something that you've talked about?
Well, Dr. Ornish, as you may know, his wife has had breast cancer. And so he's been extremely kind. Like he even gave me his cell phone number and said, if you ever, are scared in the middle of the night, I mean, it's amazing how, I mean, we already knew that people in the plant-based world were awesome and kind, but we just maybe didn't know how kind. For him to reach out like that was just this amazing email because actually I had written him because I said, how did Anne handle this? Because I know people were saying, look, he's the godfather of lifestyle medicine. His wife got cancer. And he wrote me just an incredible email, which if you want, I could either pull it up now or share it with you. But I feel like, you know, well, just that, like that you can do everything right and things can still go wrong. That there's no guarantees. And, when you think about it, there's, a doctor named Simran Malhotra, who I've had on the show, and she's what they call a previvor. She's somebody that had a strong family history. Her mom, very young, got cancer, and so she decided to have her breasts and her ovaries, and I think maybe her uterus removed. And one of the things she says that I love is that the plant based diet is a seatbelt. And it's really smart to wear a seatbelt when you drive. And in fact, it's the law. And the seatbelt can protect you against a lot of things, but you still can have an accident and you can still die. And I think I'm not telling people not to put their faith in a plant based diet for so many reasons. I mean, there's things we see it do all the time, like lower blood pressure and when done correctly, losing weight and in reversing diabetes. But there's certain things that it's just maybe not able to do. And I know that Dr. Greger's next book is about how not to get cancer, but it's going to be a few years until it comes out. And also what people have to understand is two people can do the exact same things and have different results because there's this, like Dr. Ornish talked about, the mystery. There's genetics. And also I do feel like your mental health does play a role. Who was it that was saying about how people, like I'm trying to remember now which doctor. Dr. Brooke Goldner talked about how people with trauma are more likely to get autoimmune disease and cancer. So there's things that you sometimes need to heal that are beyond just what you eat.
That analogy I loved. What was it? Say that again. It's like
Yeah, the plant-based diet is a seatbelt. It's really a good idea to wear your seatbelt. We recommend it. Here it's the law. But that doesn't mean it's going to protect you against ever having an accident.
I hope Dr. Greger puts that analogy in his new book. Um, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to that book. I think he said he's going to knock out the 7 more diseases every 2 years by doing another book. So he
Oh
does
my
every
God.
2 years. Like it's
That's
insane. It's what amazing man.
that's going to be incredible. And the other thing I think, cancer is like an umbrella, but there isn't a type of cancer. Like diabetes kind of is similar in everybody that gets it, right? It's a similar.
The manifestation, even between type 1 and
Right.
2, it's
Right.
glucose, right?
Or,
Yeah,
or let me use something that's even easier to understand. Let's just say appendicitis. If a person gets appendicitis and they present in the emergency room, there's not a billion ways to treat it. They often, like observe them and maybe give them antibiotics, or they might take it out. But there's not like a whole bunch of different ways that appendicitis will manifest in the body, and it's pretty easy to diagnose and treat. But there isn't one cancer. First of all, there's all kinds of cancers in all different kinds of body parts, and there's all different types of stages, and it doesn't react the same. Like that's why a drug that might work beautifully for one person with the same cancer doesn't. There's so much. to be learned about cancer and its treatment, that it's like just saying, well, do this. No, it doesn't always work. It would be great, and if there was this one thing that we could all do, then nobody would be dying of cancer or even getting cancer. But I feel like, in 15 years, if I'm still alive, and hopefully you're still alive, let's talk again, because I bet you there's going to be a lot more. Things are always evolving, and for example, people may not know that there's a blood test that you can get. Everybody can get that, even people without cancer, to see if they have any cancer in their body right now. I don't want people to get it and then treat things that don't need to be treated. It costs about $2,000, but the True Blood or other companies will. I got this blood test because I couldn't get a biopsy until my tumor was big enough to biopsy, and I wanted a confirmation, and it basically showed the same thing. But you still need tissue to treat it, because without the tissue, they can't figure out like what medicines are going to work without the genetic typing. But I feel like, there are people that are doing a lot of hard work in this field that at some point it's going, either people aren't going to get cancer, or when they do, we're going to be able to treat it, just like other diseases now that are not difficult to treat.
So I'm just thinking about my last year when I had my health issues. I remember just waking up in the night, having trauma about it, thinking about it. Often I was, I mentioned earlier, I was in hospital for several weeks. So what are the things you're waking up thinking about now compared to before? And I guess that must be reflected in your content right now. It's more talking about psychological help, cancer community. Is there the things that are really just on your mind the whole time? What's occupying your mind?
Well, that's the thing. Of all the things that I can't control, my mind is probably. I really do try to only fill it. Just like for years, I learned to only fill my body with good things or things that were health promoting. And then when I don't feel well. That is the hardest thing, is the mind. And so what I do is I try not to think about it or obsess about it, because I'm already an anxious person with OCD tendencies. And so what I do is I listen to something that's uplifting. Like I've gotten much into the work of metaphysical teachers, like you've probably heard of people, maybe like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Louise Hay, and I try to, especially when I get anxious, put on a podcast or listen to a meditation of something like that, where I'm distracting myself again away from the thoughts of the doom and gloom. Because believe me, I go there. One of the hardest things about being a person diagnosed with cancer that chooses to engage in these support groups, because they're enormously supportive, especially at the beginning. I love it when the new people come in, because at one point I was the newbie and I was just bawling, crying, and and then now several months later the new people come in and they're just like me, and they go, I don't mean to be, we laugh. We don't laugh at them, but we it's a laugh, a smile, of recognition, like, hey, you're in the right place, we get it. Because it's hard to talk to people without the diagnosis about the particular fear you're feeling, because people that have cancer can understand, like, this thing called scanxiety. One of the things that's, even people that aren't anxious, when our scans are due, our PET scans or our CAT scans, for about a few days before, until we get the results, our anxiety is through the roof, because we are waiting, hoping, and praying that it's definitely going to be better, or at least not be worse, for example. But the thing about being in groups with people is they start to die. And that just hits you so hard, because it's like you just know that, not it's a part of me doesn't want to go back, because you become friends with these people, you begin to care about them. But so far I've lost a few, and it's like, you when that happens, you're like, I could, I can't let my mind go there, like, well, this could be me, or I could be next. I mean, because it doesn't it doesn't help me live my life with joy and purpose in the moment. But I do go there, and I just, like I said, having a loving husband, a beautiful home, a wonderful dog. It really comes back to just learning to live in the moment, and that's what we all need to do. And my dog is very ill right now too, and it's like, it's hard. I feel bad for my husband, because the two loves of his life, his two ladies, are both not well. And it's funny, because today's our 30th wedding anniversary. But I feel, people that go through this alone. I mean, I hear from people like they don't have the support of their family or a spouse. And I would say, just find a way to get support. Whether you have a cancer diagnosis or just want to be a vegan. I mean, no man is an island, and we need people. And if you can find something supportive to help you through, what, look, everybody's going through something, and I really get that, and I'm really trying to like be less judgy and more compassionate, because even though they may not be going through cancer, everybody is going through something, and to understand that and still get support for that. And uh, life, what can I tell you? I mean, life can be really hard sometimes and unfair. Dr. Doug Lisle says life isn't even remotely fair. And I always say to that, well, that's not fair.
I was reminded that when I have to go to hospital to get a blood test or something, and you come across the nurses that are just, I don't know what it's like over there in the US, but in the UK it's the National Health Service, and they're just overworked, and you can just see I've been at times real ill, and I'm feeling more sorry for the people being overworked than I am myself. Everyone is going through stuff. And I just want to, this is actually one of the first interviews I've done in ages where I didn't prepare any questions, because I just had so many questions. I was like, I'm not going to write any down. I'm just going to talk. So it's been so great. But a colleague, Sarah, has asked if you had to give any advice for someone who's going through a similar situation to you, what would that be?
Wow, boy, I hate to, I mean, just because it worked for me doesn't work for you. I would say take a deep breath. And here's the thing: cancer grows slower than they lead you to believe. And I know that, here's the thing: if they're a radiation oncologist, they want to radiate. If they're a surgical oncologist, they want to operate. And if they're a medical oncologist, they want to medicate. That's their job. And it's like the old saying, if you're a hammer, you see everything as a nail. But you can't make a good decision when you're stressed. And I'm sure there's certain cancers that I understand are more fast growing and you have to act now. But take some time, take a deep breath, watch my 31-day series, talk to somebody that don't be forced to make a decision while you're stressed, because it may be the right one. If the doctor says, hey, like with me, well, let's just remove your left lower lung and then we'll biopsy it, and if it was cancer, isn't that great? And I'm like, but if it's not cancer, I'm going to be real pissed to lose my lung. So take some time before you rush into treatment. I mean, there might be exceptions, but look, once you have cancer, it's been there for a really long time. So another day, another week, another month is probably not going to make a difference. I know that they always tell you that it will, but it won't. And just take your time and get some kind of support, whether it's, and I don't mean like just support from a doctor, but whether it's one of these angels that you can get, like you talk to somebody that has your exact disease, whether it's cancer or another. And but that's a survivor, because to me, hope is the most important thing. As long as you are breathing, there is hope. And there are people, like, see what has helped me a lot is, and if I didn't go to the support groups, I never would have met Francis, 17-year lung cancer survivor. And so when things are down, I can not only text him and he walks me through like everything. Like he walked me through what the biopsy was going to be like. He walked me through what the infusion was going to be like. But I can text him. If you can have the support of just one buddy or one angel, I think that's going to be really, really helpful to you. Don't go through it alone. And no, because your doctor, as great as your doctor is not going to give you the kind of emotional strength and support that another living, breathing human that has had that experience will. So I would make that a priority. And yeah, but take your time. Don't be rushed into anything. There is more time than you think.
Thank you. And just to close out, the we're going to link it down below, but the event link is, remind me what the website is for people to sign up.
Yeah, it's called The Plant Powered Party, and that's the website, The Plant Powered Party. And we're trying to make it as fun as possible. We're some comedians that have been on the Tonight Show, and just maybe Joel Furman will do comedy now. I don't know. I know he's a funny guy, so maybe we can ask him to host it. So that would be kind of cool.
Amazing. We'll link that down below. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and best of health to everyone.